session coordinators, Dr. Gauri Chawla and Dr. Srishti Khan. Now, I would request our moderators to please introduce the chairperson and you can introduce the speakers followed with them. The virtual dais is handed over to you, moderators. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank,
Thank you so much.
thank you, Mike. For the last 2 years, countries around the world are battling with this deadly pandemic of COVID-19. Millions has lost their life and has sent shockwaves through the global economy. Many variants of coronavirus has been reported, and of which many of the variants were able to cause vaccine breakthrough infections. Omicron variant is the latest one, which has been declared as a variant of concern by WHO. Homeopathy has shown its positive effects in preventing many epidemics in the past. In this session, our speakers will be sharing with us their experience in preventing COVID-19 with homeopathy. The theme of this session is epidemic and pandemic experience of acute and long COVID-19 and the sub-theme COVID homeo prophylaxis. To chair this session, we have a panel of experts, Dr. Ivona Falk and Dr. Naveen Paviska. Dr. Ivona Falk has a master's degree in epidemiology and biostatistics. She has a very close association with various organizations around the world. She is a researcher with Hong Kong Association of Homeopathy, a course manager in UK School of Homeopathy, and a member of editorial board of advisory board of Indian Council of Research in Homeopathy, AFUM. At present, she's the national vice president of LMHI in China. Welcome, Dr. Ivona Falk, to the session.
Hi,
And next
nice to
we
meet you
have
all.
Dr. Naveen Paviska, a postgraduate doctor, a hospital-based clinician for more than 25 years of experience in tertiary healthcare, with identical teaching experience. She has experience of associating international healthcare organizations and works with many research projects and have several research publications in his name. At present, he is the director of JIMS Homeopathy Medical College and Hospital, Telangana. Welcome, Dr. Naveen, for the session. Okay. With the permission of the chair, I would like to welcome our first speaker of this session, Dr. Kamal Rawal. Dr. Kamal Rawal is a scientist, grade 3 scientist at the Central Council of Research in Homeopathy. And it will be the topic of his presentation is implementation of data-driven techniques to study the role of homeopathy in COVID-19. Over to Dr. Kamal Rawal.
Thank you for inviting me for this important conference. And today I'm going to speak about our experiences where we implemented data-driven techniques to study the role of homeopathy, especially in COVID-19 situation. So all these studies have been done in collaboration with the Directorate of Ayush, Delhi government. So we are thankful for them. And this, to give you an introduction, this is a fully remote contactless study which was conducted in different region of Delhi. So it was a double-blind randomized cluster study. The inclusion criteria for this study was 18 to 16 years was the age limit, and participants should not be COVID-19 positive, and if they're female, then they should not be pregnant or lactating, and they should not have taken any homeopathic medicine past 1 month. So that was the criteria. So we enrolled over 17,432 participants after screening 17,611 participants who contacted different dispensaries and hospitals which are connected to Directorate of Ayush. And after a month, we saw that 16915 participants were followed up. And this study was conducted between October 10, 2020 to January 29, 2021. And we classified our participant clinically into mild, moderate, or severe if they were symptomatic during the process. The patient data, technically, if you talk about data sets, there were 60 features, symptoms, age, gender, severity of symptom, comorbidities. So a lot of such features were captured. And we can classify these 60 features into demographic and clinical feature domain. There were 12 demographic features and 47 different clinical features in that particular study. We created forms, dashboards, so it was all IT-enabled study. There were forms, separate forms, cloud-based server, which were hosting these forms, screening forms. There were follow-up forms, and to see whether the data is being entered, there was a dashboard for doctors, there was a dashboard for data managers and the administrator as well, to see if the study is proceeding as per the protocol. Then there's a database link also to capture all the data, to study the summary of data sets which were entered into the dashboards. These are some of the examples which our team has created. The screening form looks like this. There was a login page, and after login with username and password, the doctor was allowed to enter subject's name, contact number, center ID, investigator ID, date, and the inclusion criteria was checked. If patient passed the inclusion criteria, the doctor was sent to a next form, next page. Then he checked for the comorbidities. Then he checked for the symptoms for the last 12 months in order to have a score. And there was a grading of these symptoms, never, sometime, regular. These are all WHO approved kind of a questionnaire. Then we also captured the enrollment information, the form, the cluster, district wise, study center wise, the demographic like gender, address, the job exposure, whether he was working in low risk category of jobs or whether medium risk, high risk. So all those questionnaire were presented to the investigators. And similarly, we designed a follow-up form. Once the patient was, the participant was enrolled, the follow-up form was activated for that particular ID, and the information was connected from follow-up to the screening form. So everything was done in an integrated and unified way, so that it becomes easier for us to analyze. And once you click whether you were feeling, for every week there was a kind of follow-up for whether a person was feeling asymptomatic or symptomatic. He was symptomatic, then you need to capture what kind of symptoms were there, what was the intensity, any side effects, any deaths. All those information of COVID was picked up. And similarly, there were dashboard to show what was entered into the database. And it was automatically automating the system. There were graphs which were generated. There were pie charts. A lot of statistics which were being displayed, the descriptive stats, the analytical stats. So everything was there. You can filter it using the study center wise. You can count how many people are there at particular moment of time who were enrolled, how many have been followed up. So all this information were captured in the analytics section of the dashboard. And we created separate links for all these studies to verify whatever people have entered, whether it's matching with the data at the secondary stage. So we created another set of forms which were kind of validating the entered data versus what investigator is showing at the later stage as well. So we were basically checking at the symptomatic rate, how many people got symptomatic after giving homeopathy or placebo. We were trying to compare that, and how many got positive during the process of this study, whether homeopathy has a role in reducing the symptomatic rate or reducing the positivity rate. That data will be presented at subsequent stage because it's recently unblinded. But here I'm showing the experience to handle huge amount of data coming from 50 different centers, with a lot of investigators, with a lot of data points to capture. So there were a lot of challenges which we faced in terms of data entry, the errors, the problems, verifying the data. All these issues were handled during this process. These were the Google forms which are generated at later stage. And importantly, we didn't stop only by producing statistics and all these things. We went ahead, step ahead, and we applied machine learning models. And as we know, machine learning is a kind of training our machines or computers to think like human or take decisions like human or to capture human learning ability. So such kind of models are already available. This field is playing a major role in advancement. The artificial intelligence is a buzzword these days. So here, to implement machine learning models, we curated the demographic and clinical data sets. For example, we converted different features either into binary format or categorical formats, either zero, ones, male, female, so that computer is able to understand that data properly. So our team used Python libraries. We trained our ML model using different algorithms. This is the example of few algorithms which we implemented, like k-neighbor classifier, random forest, extra tree classifier. So all these algorithms were implemented. And then we validated our model using stratified technique. And one of the way that whether machine has learned properly or not, you need to evaluate its performance. And for evaluating any performance, you need to have certain parameters. Standard parameters in machine learning are sensitivity, specificity, area under the curve, F1 scores, precision, recall, accuracy score. So all these parameters were tested, and we tried to check whether the machine is actually learning and giving us the right result or not. And we conducted several experiments. We are still building our system, and the idea was, given the input data, demographic or clinical data, which is coming from the 17,000 plus participants, can we tell whether this participant would eventually land up into low risk or high risk for the COVID-19 situation, whether he will recover fast, whether he'll reach into some sort of a complicated date. So all these output variables were derived, and we checked with various kind of input versus output situation. So we conducted multiple experiments, and we find reasonably high accuracy, although it's not great as like 90-95%. But given the kind of data set we were working with, we still were able to achieve 87% of accuracy. The idea is the strength of this system is not the accuracy at this stage. The idea is how machine learning can be implemented, how the data can drive the whole process and answer a lot of questions for the homeopathic fraternity, whether to give certain medicine or not, whether arsenic is effective, whether brine is effective for COVID-19 or not. So the data is actually answering rather than subjective feelings or one person criteria or a limited data thing. So here we are implementing huge amount of data, feeding into the machine and giving you certain answers which are supported by the data. So we gave certain kind of algorithm implementation. So for example, in one of the experiment, we picked up the general health score of a participant, immune functioning score, which were captured and entered by the participants: age, gender, weight, height, BMI, use of mask, frequency of hand washing, and try to classify, if we take these variables, can we tell the given participant will come into a low risk category or high risk category, or we can answer which medicine is suited for that, or what medicine was prescribed. So all these experiments can be conducted, extended in variety of ways, provided we have the right data captured in the right way. So this protocol is available with us. Anybody who want to implement, if he thinks that the data is available and we can apply a machine learning system, these techniques are generic. So we are happy to collaborate with that research group. So although the sensitivity, specificity, precision can range from low to high, but I believe that more data will be captured, more we implement our data-driven techniques into the homeopathy studies, research work. These numbers would improve. We are going to get great results. So these are some of the comparative tables of various experiments which we conducted. For example, from experiment number 1, we got this much accuracy. In experiment number 2, we got 84, then 82, it dropped to 79. So such kind of numbers can be generated, the comparative studies can be done. So that's all from my side, though we have huge amount of data to be shown. Since we are still working with for our research paper to present our data in front of the world in our collaborator. So first of all, I want to thank you, my colleagues in MIT University, my lab members, then Director of Ayush, Dr. Manchanda, Dr. Meeta. There was a great team of 45 doctors, Akshita, Amit, Kanika, and a lot of people were involved in collecting this data. And the other song in the Bajaj Foundation, Dr. Sankaran and Dr. Naveen Pavaskar. I'm open to the questions.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Kamal Raman, for the presentation. It was a large-scale study, but you could be able to incorporate the digital technology and make it more simple. I was also fortunate enough to be part of that study. Now I invite our research chairs to have a short interaction with Dr. Kamal Raman, Dr. Naveen, and Dr. Vienna.
Right.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, sure.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kamal, I think you've given an excellent overview of how machine learning can be applied, and data underpinning can give us a lot of objectivity. What were the challenges between with such large numbers of 17,000 odd subjects that were being, enrolled, and with so many other intermediate doctors being involved into this? What was your challenges in terms of data accuracy, and how does it impact the machine learning?
Right. So our challenges started with the doctors because first there was a heterogeneity of data. People were collecting, some people were using the Excel sheet, despite, we had the form ready and everything was there. And people were using like papers, Excel sheets, registers. So when you use these things at a large scale, when you try to enter this data into system from this paper format, there are a lot of errors people produce, and this human nature, we don't blame anyone, but this is how it happened in large clinical research trials and all. So that is one thing. The data entry was problematic. Secondly, the people were not able to get the right follow-ups or on-time follow-ups because of COVID-19. The participants were not cooperating with the investigators, so that was a major issue from their end. The data was not coming on time, and a lot of time the information was getting changed, and the people were trying to edit it a lot of time. So that was a problem which we have faced. Then coordinating with large number of people was a major issue. And then integrating all this data set in one place, reaching to a meaningful conclusion, that was another challenge in front of us. So these were all issues. And then asking right question from this data set is still a big challenge, because people are not kind of tuned into latest technologies, how we are expecting the data should be, and there should not be extra characters, or you should not put any extra information. Don't leave the things blank, the columns or the cells in the Excel sheet. So a lot of these issues were there during the data collection part.
Do we have the moderators with us, ma'am?
Yes, Dr. Yonfok, do you have any questions to ask? Or we shall move further?
Yeah, maybe we can move further.
Yeah, we can keep the end for this questions then. Yeah.
Okay, then.
Thank
Okay,
you.
with the permission of the chair, we call upon our next speaker, Dr. Anupriya Chowdhury. She's a research officer at the Central Council of Research in Homeopathy. And the title for her presentation is Homeopathy Medicines, Arsenic Album in COVID-19, a retrospective analysis from mass level. Over to Dr. Anupriya.
Right. Thank you so much. So I will just share my screen. Right. So first of all, I would like to extend my warm greetings to the respected chairpersons of our session and to my fellow panelists, and also to the moderators of the session, and congratulate the organizing team for organizing such a wonderful platform and bringing all of us together globally in the right sense today. And I take this opportunity to reintroduce myself. I'm Dr. Anupriya. I'm working as a research officer at the Central Council for Research in Homeopathy at New Delhi. And I shall be presenting about our work, Homeopathic Medicine Arsenic Album in COVID-19, the findings from a retrospective analysis from mass level data. So before I begin with, how we went about this, I will just at the outset want to introduce everybody to the situation that was there in India just at the beginning of the pandemic. So while the COVID-19 pandemic, it posed a global medical challenge due to absence of any known conventional treatment or vaccination, the rich wisdom of Ayush systems was explored in India. And the notable role of homeopathy in the past epidemic was remembered. And very, very early in the pandemic, in late January, in the 64th meeting of the Scientific Advisory Board, the expert group recommendations, they culminated in the release of the Central Advisory by the Ministry of Ayush, which suggested arsenic album 30 as a prophylactic for COVID-19 disease. And this advisory, which was released in the last week of January itself in 2020, it eventually reached the states early in March. So while the preparedness for the disease and the response that we had seen to the central advisory, it differed from state to state. But many governments like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Delhi, Haryana, Rajasthan, Kerala, they soon adopted the central advisory, and these states, they eventually released their own specific state orders, which were circulated all through. So even during the initial time, like the last week of January, when this PIB advisory was released, this was very soon followed by the medicine distribution across this country, across our country. And tremendous efforts were made by the homeopathic medical colleges located all across India for mass distribution of this medicine. And these snowballing efforts created a unique situation in India in almost no time. And we were receiving this information at CCRH very early in February, how the medicine has been distributed in various districts that you can see on the map on the left side. And you can see on the right side, a news report which says that homeopathic drug was given to almost half of the Gujarat state. So the effects were actually snowballing, and it was a unique situation, absolutely. And the medicine reached a heterogeneous group of population who was heterogeneous in terms of their age, location, cultures, ethnicity, even during the early lockdown phases. So back at CCRH in February, we developed this very simple spreadsheet format. And we shared this format with all the homeopathic medical colleges and the state government departments or the private organizations, NGOs, to a lot of organizations. We just shared the format very early in February with all of them, just in case, just with the idea actually that they will eventually be able to capture the distribution data and also the response of these individuals who consumed arsenic album 30 as per the central advisory. So in no time, we were having a huge data pool with us at CCRH, which was collected from 50 colleges over the time of February to August 2020. And we could gather from this data that the medicine has been distributed to 10.6 million individuals by these colleges who were residing in 34 districts of 13 states from this time period. And so what we decided was that, we will do an analysis of all the secondary data that we have collected from the colleges to see the demographic and other information about the mimicking symptoms of COVID-19 about, post-prophylactic consumption. So these colleges, when they distributed these medicines to these people, eventually they tried to follow them up as per feasibility at the end of the first week or the second week or the third week or 1 month, whatever was feasible at the level of the college teams. And most of these interactions by the college teams, they were made telephonically or even through personal visits. So like a good number of colleges, we had a lot of interactions later with the college teams. And we came to know that so many efforts were made by the college teams to specifically go down, to the homes, and because it was early lockdown phases, people sometimes were not really interested in taking calls even. And so people actually went down to the doorstep to collect such an information. So coming on to the methodology of this entire analysis. So what we started with, we started identifying the study population out of this huge data. And we decided that out of the secondary data of individuals, we are going to take into account individuals falling into any age group, both genders, who consumed arsenic album 30, 3 doses, once daily for 3 days, as it was advised in the central advisory, and those who could be followed up telephonically or personally on completion of at least 3 weeks post-prophylactic consumption during this period. So that was the benchmark that we decided. And we tried to see the outcome as the incidence of COVID-19. And we followed the national guideline at that point of time, which was given by the National Center for Disease Control, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, where the NCDC defined a suspected case of COVID-19 to be one which showed a presence of any 2 symptoms out of a list of 14 symptoms that they had given at that point of time. So individuals showing the presence of any 2 symptoms in the absence of laboratory testing, that person was labeled to be a suspected case of COVID-19, while a confirmed case would have been one which had a positive report through a laboratory investigation for COVID-19 already in place. And in addition to this, we also evaluated the effect of risk factors. So risk factors being at that point of time, the age, the comorbidities, and the gender, and how they interacted with the incidence of disease, and what was the clinical presentation of this COVID-19 population. And along with that, we also tried to see what was the average duration of suffering in these people. So we had a huge task at hand, and this entire study population came to be about 6 lakhs, almost, in fact, 6.7 lakhs individuals, that's 0.67 million. And this entire population was then subjected to analysis. On the right side of my screen is the demographic table for this data set that we analyzed, where the demographic variables are given. And the average age of this data set was around 36 years rather. And we had approximately a representation from 58% males and 41% females. And we then tried to also categorize the occupation. And we saw that almost 46% of these people were self-employed. And we also had a lot of healthcare workers or police personnel and media or social activists also as a part of this data set who were out in the fields at that point of time. We went forth and we also saw what was a comorbidity prevalence in this population. And we saw that a good 4.16% of these were hypertensive, which was followed by approximately 3% of them being diabetic. So we further analyzed and we saw that out of this entire study population, the COVID-19 population, which we classified to be as suspected plus the confirmed cases, came out to be only 0.38%. And this also included 127 self-reported laboratory confirmed COVID-19 cases, while the rest of the population, it fell in as the non-suspected population and did not show any COVID-19 mimicking symptoms at the end of 3rd week of consumption of arsenic album 30, that is 3 doses. So 3rd week was basically counted from the day when the person finished with the 3 doses. So 3 weeks following that, there was nothing that these people actually experienced. And the top 3 districts which reported this kind of a population were from the 3 states in India. First one being Maharashtra, which was very much in the news all through. And we had the maximum cases being reported by the Nasik district. Then followed by that was Villupuram district in Tamil Nadu, and then Gwalior district in Madhya Pradesh. We also try to have a look at the characteristics of the COVID-19 population, and the mean age that we found in this specific COVID-19 population was around 39.5 years of age. And a majority percentage of these individuals were the middle age group, that is 21.2% were falling between 31 to 40 years of age, while another 20.6% were 51 to 60. So that's the elderly now also, having a representation here. And we saw that around 60% of them were males, followed by 39% who were the females in this COVID-19 population, and a good 5.9% were hypertensive, and a 5.4% were also diabetic. In this entire COVID-19 population, we also tried to capture if there was a previous contact that they had with any COVID-19 positive person, and we found that 3.66% participants of this COVID-19 population, they reported having a history of contact with a previous COVID-19 person. So moving on with this, we did some statistical analysis that we had from the data that we had at hand, and we tried to see the incidence rate calculated as per 10,000 person weeks. So we had this entire population being followed for 2009178 person weeks. And when we calculated, we found that the overall incidence rate of COVID-19 in this population was 12.9 per 10,000 person weeks. So we had a very huge data at hand, but the problem was that we did not have a control group and we had nothing to compare it with. So we decided that let us try to see what has been the incidence rate amongst the high-risk groups and amongst those people who were following and amongst those people who were their counterpart. So what we did was that we tried to see the incidence rate considering each risk factor, the first one being age. So elderly people were known to have been more susceptible to have this kind of an illness at that point of time and even today. And above 60 years of age group and below 60 years of age group were the two categories that we formed. And we tried to see what was the incidence of COVID-19 in both these age groups. And to our surprise, we found that the incidence rate in these two groups were very similar, or they were very near, or in some cases, they were almost near equal as well. Then we also try to find out the same thing for gender, because male was being a male, the male gender was being considered as a big risk factor. And we saw that the incidence rate in the male population was 13.4, while in the female it was 12.3. We did the same exercise for the comorbid population, and we tried to see if the comorbid population was also equally affected as compared to the non-comorbid population, or how the situation was. And we saw that the comorbid population rather was having an incidence rate of 13.6 as compared to 13.8 in their counterpart. Now, on the right side of my screen is our two graphs, where the upper graph actually is depicting the situation that we all saw, which was being reported in India, where we had a steady rise in the incidence of COVID-19 from February to August, while on the other hand, when we compared the incidence of disease over the months in this study population, we found that there was a statistically significant decreasing trend in the incidence which was observed from February to August. Then we also tried to see what was the clinical presentation of disease in this COVID-19 population, where we saw that fever was definitely the most important and the most frequently reported symptom, which was approximately reported by, approximately by 78% of people, which is followed by cough by 63%, and another 56% reporting running nose, sneezing, or coryza. Myalgia, body ache, or fatigue was also reported by a good 41% in this population. The most reported symptom complex that was reported in this population was fever and cough, which is followed by a combination of fever, cough, coryza, and sore throat, and then fever, cough, and sore throat. And on an average, the symptom resolution of these symptoms in this population came out to be around 3.74 days. So moving on with the concluding points of this retrospective analysis that we did, I would like to say that this basically, this analysis was an attempt to observe the response and impact of this medicine in a very diverse population with varying epidemiological characteristics with respect to time, geographical location, personal attributes, socioeconomic status, literacy, and heterogeneous almost every aspect, and those who were possibly exposed to various mutant COVID-19 viruses as well. And we found a statistically significant and decreasing trend of COVID-19 incidence in the study population over time, contrary to the Indian picture during this time. Near equal or comparable incidence of COVID-19 in the high-risk groups, like those like males.
Dr. Anupriya, sorry to interrupt you. Could you please wrap the session in another 1 minute?
Right, so I'll just take another half a minute, that's all. Yeah. So I was saying that a near comparable incidence of COVID-19 was found in the risk groups like males or patients or persons aged above 60 years, and as well as the comorbid population when compared to their counterpart, which suggested that the medicine could help reduce the added risk that these individuals had to contract the disease. And findings of a study are also evocative of the potential a carefully selected homeopathic genus epidemics carries in any new or lesser known disease. And it suggested that it's a viable approach to manage new or unknown communicable diseases in the light of difficulties of time required for developing and disseminating vaccines. So this analysis, which was taken up by CCRH, was unique in many aspects, be it the huge number or the representativeness from various districts across India or the pragmatic nature of the data, but where we could observe a very positive and a possible prophylactic effect of the medicine. And these findings strongly suggested a need for controlled field trials to establish a causal relationship between the two, between arsenic album and COVID-19 incidence, and studies to see also the immunomodulatory action of the medicine. And further, these studies were then taken up by CCRH in various containment zones in Delhi and across India. And I think results of these studies shall be presented by my senior tomorrow in one of his sessions. And I would like to say here that India has always felt proud of its huge educational infrastructure and manpower. But this pandemic actually got everyone together selflessly and unleashed the real potential this country has. And such a large-scale application of this medicine and data collection could not have been possible otherwise to contribute to this first of its kind research analysis. And before I conclude, there are certain limitations that we found to this particular analysis that we had, and I will just quickly go through them. And the first one being that we could capture the effect of the prophylactic effect of the medicine only once, that is at the end of the 3rd week, but we couldn't really assess, the sustained protective effect over a period because we did not have those kind of similar follow-ups out of the data that we got. And naturally, owing to the absence of testing and the data of such a data from the masses, we could not really assess what was the infection rate and also the asymptomatic burden that this population carried. And findings of this mass data report, positive leads were in favor of the prophylactic potential, but no causal attribution could be drawn because of the inherent bias or in the absence of a control group. So before I just quickly wrap up, I would like to acknowledge the selfless efforts by all these COVID warriors who were out in their fields very early in the lockdown phases amidst all the fear and the panic situations. And these are all glimpses from the various college teams who were out in the fields distributing arsenic album. And this is a list of the 50 colleges who contributed all this data from which we could make this retrospective analysis. And before that, I end up, I would like to thank all the beautiful people on the screen, my mentors, Dr. Anil Khurana sir, my Director General, CCRH, Dr. Devdutt Nayak, my senior, and my team, Dr. Swati, Dr. Mahua, and Reshmi, who worked relentlessly to analyze this huge data. Thank you so much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Dr. Anupriya, for that wonderful presentation. It has endured a massive study that you people are conducted by CCH. Dr. Unifolk, ma'am, do you like to ask me questions?
you, Dr. Anupriya. It's really lovely to see such a large-scale trial, and I mean, I cannot imagine that it really happened to homeopathy. So it is wonderful. I may have missed it, but because I'm actually just thinking of capturing some of the points to put it on our social media in Hong Kong. So maybe just add me a little bit detail. I saw 12.9 as the incident rate per 10,000 person weeks
Right.
in the study group, right? What is, do you have any figure about like what is the incident rate per 10,000 person week in the general population at that time in India? So that maybe we can, when we, yeah.
So we tried to gather that kind of data as well, but that could have been possible only if we had the number of COVID-19 incidence rates at that particular point from all the districts parallelly. But since this was the secondary data that we got, so going back in time and getting that kind of data was really not possible. Otherwise, it would have been a wonderful comparator that we would have.
So there is nothing like the incidents that confirmed case at that time, and then at the overall population in general, then calculate just a rough amount, rough data, not possible.
It would be possible, that, but that would not be an accurate number. So that's why we decided not to give it.
All right.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah, we're just thinking about. Yeah, it would be interesting if we can share it on the social media. Yeah, once
Right,
maybe
right.
publish it.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yuan Fok. Dr. Naveen Paskal, so would you like to ask some questions?
So, Dr. Anupriya, wonderful and a massive study from your team and CCRH. Really a massive, massive effort. So first of all, congratulations for that. My only question was like for such a large study, if we were to look at the controls, right? And since you here obviously have used untreated controls, they were not under the treatment group. How do you think that probably affected the overall comparison and outcome of your study?
So I didn't really understand by what you mean by untreated
So you
controls. So
used the controls to understand, you took the controls from external data, right? Which was not under the
no, so
Yes.
these were not these were not populations from the external data. This was the group which consumed the prophylactic.
Okay.
So it was from the same study population.
All right.
Right. So it
And
was, yeah.
so it was from the same study population, but were they under treatment or they were not under treatment?
So they also consume the prophylactics, absolutely similar fashion as the other group. So what we tried to see was only, that from the study population, the single cohort that we had, what
Right.
was the difference that we could see between the two groups by segregating them with the help of a high risk factor. So,
Okay.
so that is what we tried to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Naveen. Dr. Anupriya, thank you once again for joining the session. With the permission of the chair, let me welcome our next speaker. Dr. Andre Singh is a consultant homeopath from Canada. And the title of his presentation is Use of Medicines to Prevent Disease, Scientific Evidence of Efficacy of Belladonna to Prevent Scarlet Fever. Over to you, Dr. Andre Singh.
Oh, thank you for the introduction. Welcome to everyone, and I'll just jump into the subject. In the fall of 2019, there was a scare about measles in the state of New York and California, which raised the possibility of mandatory vaccination. Patients began to ask me whether it was better or not to be vaccinated, to vaccinate their children. I told them that I would research the subject of vaccination in general and of measles in particular to better advise them. As I was discovering that vaccination was an extremely complex subject, I decided to document this research into a book, Risk and Benefit of Vaccination, a Holistic Perspective, which ended up to be 388 pages long with over 1,000 references. The main finding of this research on vaccination are, for the last 200 years, the key narrative of the medical establishment regarding vaccination has been that the benefits of vaccination far outweigh the risk. However, it was found in this research that no vaccine was safe, despite all the narratives to the contrary, as all vaccine can be associated with serious adverse event, and because the definition of the word safe is, quote, presenting no risk or physical harm, posing no threat, nor not dangerous. And as one of the most fundamental principles of medicine is primum non nocere, physician above all do no harm, a more safe alternative to conventional vaccine was sought after. Another arm of this research was to see if the use of medicine to prevent epidemic disease, as it has been used in homeopathy since 1799, was not only safer, but above all, sufficiently effective to be a viable alternative to conventional vaccination. I focused this research on one intervention for one specific condition, which was belladonna, the first medicine to be used to prevent epidemic disease, which is the subject of this presentation, and whose fascinating research into an important chapter in the history of medicine also ended up to be a book, which is about 600 pages long with over 1,600 references. In September 1798, Dr. Edward Jenner published his finding about the inoculation of cowpox to prevent smallpox. Only a few months afterwards, in January 1799, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann faced a most violent and very contagious epidemic of scarlet fever in the town of Königslutter, where he was living in Germany. It was during this epidemic that Hahnemann made an important discovery in the history of medicine, which was the effectiveness of medicines to prevent epidemic disease. He observed that the symptomatology of belladonna corresponded well to the one of the first stage of smooth type of scarlet fever, and at the same time, belladonna prevented the further development of the disease when it was in its incipient stage, and as well as to prevent its development in the one who had been clearly exposed to this highly contagious influence. 2 years later, in 1801, almost exactly 3 years after the publication of Jenner's report, Hahnemann reported his own discovery in a book. One of the most distinguished and better known academic physicians of Europe, Dr. Christoph Uffelin of Berlin, was one of the first physicians to put belladonna to the test. Uffelin confirms Hahnemann's observation as the editor of one of the most prestigious academic medical journals of the time, induced his colleague in numerous occasions to put belladonna to the test. A great number of trials began to appear in the literature out of many countries over the next century. A systematic review was conducted by searching through several data banks for these reports of trials. Let's first review what should be known about scarlet fever in order to better appreciate the importance of the subject. The contagiousness and violence of scarlet fever can vary from one epidemic to another, from one period of time to another, and from one place to another. It is interesting to note that the more contagious epidemics tended also to be the more virulent one, and that the great majority of the trials on belladonna were conducted during the first half of the 19th century, when scarlet fever tended to be most virulent and contagious. Some epidemics were so contagious that not a child that never had scarlet fever would be spared. And in those most contagious epidemics, the mortality rate could easily rise up to 30% or even 50%. As scarlet fever tended to visit communities every 4 to 6 years, it would therefore terrorize populations when it was approaching, as there was no place to hide. The younger children were always the most susceptible to new epidemics and would fall victim to its in greatest numbers. Another interesting fact about scarlet fever is that it has been known to appear for a century or so with great virulence and then become mild or almost disappear for another century or so. The last decline of this contagiousness, great contagiousness and virulence began at the same time in Europe and North America around 1880 and continued to progressively decline throughout the 20th century to the point that scarlet fever became quite rare and mild. However, in the 1980s, the incidence of infectious condition associated with strain of the bacterium of scarlet fever, that is the highly invasive group A streptococcus, began to markedly increase and include, aside from the classic scarlet fever, very serious syndromes such as necrotizing fasciitis, toxic shock syndrome with organ failure, which were associated with mortality rate as high as 50%. Recent outbreaks of group A streptococcus, including scarlet fever, have occurred primarily among otherwise healthy population, raising concern about the rise of antibiotic-resistant strain. Further, in the last decade, scarlet fever began to reappear in many countries around the world, including the UK after 2014, and Hong Kong and China after 2011, where over 500,000 cases have been reported between 2011 and 2019. It is interesting to note that in the 2011 scarlet fever outbreak in Hong Kong, the responsible streptococcus strain contained tetracycline and erythromycin-resistant genes. Out of the 900 cases of scarlet fever that were hospitalized in the UK epidemic in 2014, many presented severe complications of scarlet fever, such as cellulitis, sepsis, encephalitis, toxic shock syndrome, and glomerulonephritis. In this systematic review, 192 reports of trials have been found in the literature, which makes this review by far the largest one ever conducted on the subject. Of these 192 trials, 155 or 81% present trial with positive outcome, and 95 or 61% of these 155 trials present significant findings, or about 50% of all the reports. All these trials have been rigorously analyzed and evaluated. Out of the 155 reports of trials with positive outcome, 73 of these provide exact numbers, which allow for a quantitative analysis. Out of 8603 people who took belladonna in the reports of trial with positive outcome, 8450 or 98.2% of these people were spared of scarlet fever. This apparently very high protective rate can only be suggestive of the effectiveness of belladonna to prevent scarlet fever, as no one can say what would have happened if the remedy had not been administered. The ultimate test would be, of course, to have series of randomized placebo-controlled trials conducted in different localities and circumstances. However, no RCT has been found in the literature on the prevention of scarlet fever with belladonna, which was not a common clinical tool in the 19th century. The second best tool to a series of RCTs to evaluate the efficacy of a prophylactic intervention would be series of randomized comparative group of treated and untreated people who were similarly exposed and shared the same environment during the same epidemic. In this systematic review, there were 28 reports of positive outcome trials that provide exact number of people who were treated and untreated and who share the same environment and exposure during the same epidemic, such as living in the same household, institution, or small community. Of the 813 people who were equally exposed to scarlet fever, 675 took belladonna, and only 7 or 1% of these contracted the disease versus 83 out of 132, 38 or 60% of the ones who did not take belladonna. This would mean that in a population of 10,000 people who would be exposed without the intake of a prophylactic medicine to a very contagious type of scarlet fever, 6,000 would fall sick to the disease, but this number would drop to only 100 by simply taking belladonna preventively. These numbers are obviously extremely significant in favor of the efficacy of belladonna to prevent scarlet fever, as the odds ratio for developing scarlet fever in the ones who took belladonna was 0.0058 versus in the one not taking it with a p-value of less than 0.0001. Since the initial trial of Hahnemann in 1799, the methodology of homeoprophylaxis has been further perfected and simplified by Hahnemann and several succeeding generations of homeopaths, and has been extended with the same degree of effectiveness to other infectious diseases such as cholera, yellow fever, smallpox, diphtheria, whooping cough, measles, influenza, malaria, poliomyelitis, meningitis, Japanese encephalitis, leptospirosis, dengue fever, chikungunya, and currently COVID-19. Overall, homeoprophylaxis has many major advantages, such as 1, It is extremely safe for all, including newborn infant, pregnant mother, and the aged, frail, and immunocompromised persons. It can be deployed as soon as an epidemic points its nose. The specific homeoprophylactic remedy can be quickly changed whenever the genus epidemicus changes in a certain area during an epidemic. It is very cost effective as very little manpower is needed for its preparation and distribution. Remedies have a very long shelf life. The effectiveness of the genus epidemicus remedy tends to approach 100% protection rate. If the remedy used is not an omnimo genus epidemicus, but only a close fit, it can still be efficacious, but to a lesser degree, and will likely reduce the severity of the disease and its mortality. It can be given during the incubation period and even in the incipient stage of the disease, which would either stop its development or greatly attenuate its severity. Homeoprophylaxis also has some minor disadvantages, such as the best remedy for homeoprophylaxis will need to be found in each epidemic. The choice and proper administration of the remedy are dependent on the skill of the local homeopathic practitioner. The remedy will need to be repeated weekly or monthly, and sometimes more or less during prolonged period of exposure. No lasting immunity is developed, and therefore, in another epidemic of the same disease, homeoprophylaxis will need to be resumed. If there is a change in the genus epidemicus, the remedy will need to be changed. The genus epidemicus can be different in different regions during the same epidemic. Person with extreme sensitivity to remedies will require special instruction on how to take the protective remedy. In conclusion, the scientific evidence in favor of the effectiveness and efficacy of belladonna to prevent the smooth type of scarlet fever is indisputable, as it has been found to be overwhelmingly quantitatively and qualitatively positive and statistically very significant. Hahnemann's discovery in 1799 opened a window to an entirely new and far-reaching thought field of pharmacology, which is the use of medicine to prevent epidemic disease. Prophylaxis is not a perfect method of protection, but it is the best that science has so far found. It has many major advantages and some minor disadvantages, but overall, what should be remembered is that it is very safe, efficacious, cost-effective, quick to deploy, and simple to apply. Finally, the dictum that the benefits of vaccination far outweigh the risk can now be challenged with robust scientific evidence, as the ultimate and sacred promise of medicine has always been to be most safe and beneficial to all. I thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew Singh, for that very interesting presentation and a very relevant topic in today's event. Now, request Dr. Unifolk and Dr. Navin Polskar to have a short interaction with Dr. Andrew Singh. Over to the chairs.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew. And it's really nice to hear from you again. We have been listening quite a lot from you actually in the past 2 years. And I have no questions, just a little thing to maybe you may also be interested. You have mentioned about Hong Kong, right? Yeah, in the scarlet fever outbreak in Hong Kong in 2011. Actually, we were, I was also a homeopath there in Hong Kong in 2011, and we really did use belladonna for prophylaxis during that period, during that epidemic period. Yeah, and
but be aware that most of the research I presented was done by allopathic doctor, so they didn't discriminate from one epidemic to the other. If belladonna was the genus epidemicus, they just use it routinely. But Hahnemann says it's for these symptoms, but they didn't pay attention to that. And homeopaths usually did not use belladonna for the epidemic they were facing. They were using the genus epidemicus of the local epidemic at that time. So there's two worlds there. One that did rigidly not according to Hahnemann, just did belladonna every time there was scarlet fever. And then there was homeopath that used different remedy like aromatrophilium, sometimes with sulfur. So they use different remedy at different times.
Yeah, right. that time, actually in Hong Kong, the number of cases is not that really that large. And overall, we just when the outbreak first started, then we first when you use belladonna fast, and then pretty soon the epidemic subside. Then we do not really have a case. We don't have a chance to see too many cases.
Yeah, it's interesting because during the very contagious epidemic, there was an area of Germany. There was like 5 village, and there was 3 physicians dealing with 5 village, and there was 10 epidemics in those 5 village, and the 3 physicians were able to stop the epidemic as soon as they start the belladonna 10 times. 10 time out of 10, while in the surrounding village, it continued to occur.
Yeah.
So when I say there was 50%, when I say there was 50% of the study that were at significant finding, this would be a significant finding.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yvonne. Dr. Naveen Pakistan.
So thank you for this presentation. Do you have any references which suggest that what would be a safe sample to study before we say that a particular remedy in a particular local area could be kind of labeled as genus epidemicus? Do you have any of those references for our future, future studies?
Well, yes, there is guidelines to find the genus epidemicus. So the essential guidelines are in the organon. So it's to look at as many cases as possible in one area and try to find what's common, what characteristic symptom is most common for the totality of the group. So if we had to prescribe for the group, which remedy we would give. Another indices is like we did for the COVID is the first case of people that had flu-like symptom, we check which symptom they had and how they responded. So how they responded to it. So as soon as we saw that there was a response to a certain remedy, we start to use prophylactically. And the more we prescribe, the more do we saw case, the more we confirm. And so the genus epidemicus was confirmed. So this one is before we apply it, so on a theoretical basis by studying the most characteristic symptom. And the second one is to get feedback for the first case that you treat. And if you see that every single case that you treat, or the majority of the case that you treat at the beginning, and it has to be for the first stage of the disease, by the way. When we use a genus epidemicus, it's for the first stage of the disease. So otherwise, if you use a later stage of the disease, then it would not be as efficient. So there are lots of epidemic in the history of homeopathy, like local epidemic. When the doctor found the genus epidemicus, it was 100% a protective rate, not only 100% protective rate, but the people that were already sick, if they received that medicine, they usually recover as a whole. So there's a phenomenal history there in the history of homeopathy about using the genus epidemicus and how it's so efficacious. Like we're talking about a degree of efficacy of 98+%. Like I say, it would reach some degree locally 100%.
Okay, thanks.
So anytime somebody would do a study on homeoprophylaxis, if the results are less than, let's say, 95% accuracy, that means the remedy may be so good, or maybe compliance was not good. Sometimes compliance is not good, and sometimes also is the potency that is used. So the potency also can be very used, and the frequency.
That's right.
Depending of the level of exposure.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Naveen, and thank you, Dr. Andres again. Now I invite Dr. Cheshta Nagar, my co-moderator, to take up the session. And
Dr. Dhanraj. Next in line, we have Dr. OSN Ghosh, who's a scientist and head at Advanced Research Lab, Department Research Wing, Government Homeopathic Medical College, Department of Ayush, Kerala. And he would be speaking on the immunomodulatory action of arsenic album 30 in COVID-19. So over to you, Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you. So I will share my screen.
So visible.
So today the topic of my presentation is actually the immunomodulatory action of arsenic amalgam. Uh, Actually, there is an extensive presentation by Dr. Anupriya just before a few minutes. So I just want to go directly into the picture. Why? Because see, so in the outline of my talk, I will just give a background of this prophylaxis and why we use this kind of quantum biological perspective in understanding the action of arsenic amalgam, and what is COVID-19 infection, and some methods we use to perform this immunological analysis, and finally we'll conclude with its future perspective. So see, surprisingly, in day-to-day life, human beings and all we are encountering lots of viruses, but really speaking, it does not have any bad impact on our health. Why? Because we have a very amazing immune system, which is a highly adaptive system, is having different layers of immunological responses towards this kind of pathogenic attack. And actually the old school of all type of approach, like the so-called allopathic approach or the so-called modern medicine approach established, maybe the WHO syndicate is running the show for a long time. But when you look into the personalized precision perspective, this systems biological approach is very important in this kind of public health intervention. So trillions of cells running in kind of biome engines can have a lot of very complex interactions with the environmental variables. So if you consider this human genome as having a 3.2 around billion base pairs, you look at the specifically in this LTR retrotransposons, which is having a very unique thing integrated called as virome. So if you consider our human body, the virome, which we already have the legacy of all these DNA viruses and RNA viruses in all these domains. So especially you look into this COVID-19, which is RNA-based virus, you can see the digestive tract, blood, respiratory, and nervous system. Suppose just for a fun, if some very bad people want to do this kind of morbidity engineering, they can clearly target all these systems by just developing an RNA-based virus. So come to the homeopathy. Homeopathy is considered a scientific due to actually our group mainly working on the scientific aspects of homeopathy, similia similibus curanda and law of reversal of cure, and ultimately the clinical outcome. So there is a very interesting observation. See the date of filing of this SARS-based one patent by European Patent Specification. They published a patent in 2019, just before the outbreak. Interestingly, this is about a coronavirus having a kind of engineered spike protein. And they are discussing much about how it can be used as an attenuated vaccine to reduce the proliferation of this kind of SARS-based virus. So beyond all these conspiracy theories, this is a data, so interesting data, which is filed until 23/7/2015. So it's quite amazing. So come to this arsenic amalgam. See, as per the homeopathic aspect, you know the symptom similarity is the main reason of selecting it. Already, CCRH team has given a very detailed presentation about that. So come to this production of arsenic amalgam. We are using as per the homeopathic pharmacopoeia of India. So using this solution-based method means using glycerin and arsenic amalgam fine powder. So with this only we start the synthesis of arsenic amalgam. So all of you know it very well, like through this Hahnemannian classical method, we are making it, and it is produced actually in Kerala, the state in India. We followed these guidelines by the Ministry of Ayush and CCRH to distribute arsenic amalgam-30 as a prophylactic drug at the initial phases of this COVID-19. And even there is a lot of hesitancy to give this medicine because a lot of agencies are, especially in public health domain, is very skeptical about this prophylactic action in Kerala. But the Department of Homeopathy, and with the help of these guidelines and support from CCRs, we are able to give it. We use the homeopathic medicine produced by the Kerala State Homeopathic Cooperative Pharmacy called HomeCo, which is producing the medicines from 1975. So they are supplying mainly this medicine to the public health networks in Kerala. So quite interestingly, if you look at this arsenic amalgam scenario, anyway, the beyond all these Avogadro controversies or ultra dilution issues, we put a working hypothesis of the starting material of arsenic amalgam is arsenic trioxide, which is having enormous inhibitory actions in NF-kappa, a lot of you can see tons of literature. But the thing is, it's all based on arsenic trioxide based T cell elevation, arsenic antiviral activity of these systems, and lot of huge data sets are available. But the only problem in translating these kinds of advanced data to homeopathy is that we had to uh, be clear that whether this arsenic amalgam 30 contain any arsenic trioxide source material, or if it contain or it's at least it retain its structural property or electronic structural peculiarities in its ultra dilutions. See, arsenic trioxide is used in traditional Indian medicine and traditional Indian system of medicine called Siddha medicine thousands of years back, and still it's a mystery. So if you look at these action pathways of arsenic trioxide, you can see that it is having a lot of interaction between very confined biochemical pathways, which involve this G protein coupler receptors, transporters, and all these enzymatic pathways and FKAPA. You can see it's a network pharmacological diagram. So if you look at this network pharmacological diagram of immunological pathways, of immunological compromise happens due to the SARS-CoV-2, there is a huge similarity between these two pathways. So if you if you consider it as a kind of biofunctional interaction, then we can identify by giving the arsenic amalgam 30 what is happening to the human body, how we are going to acquire this immunity. So we hypothesize that it may be a non-specific immunogenicity, and maybe the activation of prime line of immunity like CD4 CD8 T elevation. From that, the human system will get a kind of learning which will help the B cell memory to uh, do this coding in the DNA and recall them when they get the real SARS-CoV-2 infection. So actually, there is a huge misconception regarding quantum biology. People think that this kind of quantum process are not possible in room temperature or biological system, but we recently find out that this kind of symmetry breakdown and this kind of processes are possible at biological system and at room temperature level. This is an example, like we identified bound exciton can be measured at room temperature by our own group. So we just what we had done is we just selected the 12 lakh population in Pathanamthitta. We selected 24 Grama Panchayat. From that, we screened around 1,151 participants, and from them, we just given single question screening tool whether they're subject to any stress due to this pandemic, because it's the initial phases of the pandemic, and we identified that 61 participants are subjected to this subjective stress due to this kind of impact. So we use an impact event scale to measure it, and we use the following exclusion and inclusion criteria to do the sampling. And we just took the CD3, CD4, CD8, and this as the experimental parameters. And Indian population mean is around for CD3 1692, CD4 919, and CD8 552. So we just do this arsenic amalgam intervention and took their serum and run the fast scan. So what we have done is we use some strict methods for uniform sampling, and we excluded 12 participants from that due to some feasibility things, and around 29 participant, 20 given consent, and we run the 20 people's before after serum data using a fast scan. We run the CD3, CD4, CD8 panels, and we got this observation. So before that, their CD4, CD8, all these level are actually dropped down to the Indian population value. After giving the arsenic amalgam, it got elevated. The T lymphocyte count got elevated, absolute CD3 got elevated, CD4 got elevated, CD8. But you can see that all these kind of immunological response by the system is actually individually varying. You can't see a clear trend, but due to, I think, due to this kind of susceptibility of the system's biology, or that individuality of the biological system, they have given different kind of responses. But ultimately, we are able to see an observation that by giving arsenicum album, it's giving a kind of immunological stress to the human system's biology in such a way that the same immunological compromise will happen due to the coronavirus. So body is getting a kind of immunological response to throw away this kind of foreign body. So what happens is, when they get the real COVID infection, the system will be able to generate this kind of pre-proteins required for the antibody synthesis. This has to be explored. So we are doing some now pseudovirus and live virus models now in collaboration with some biological institutes in India, and some work is on the way. And we have to do the standardization of arsenic amalgam. And so we believe that this ultra dilution Avogadro thing is a myth. Surely these kind of systems retain its physical chemical properties in the ultra dilution, maybe due to the symmetry breakdown, or this kind of higher kind of quantum processes happening due to the potentization. And this is our study team by Dr. Thomas, who designed the clinical side, and Dr. Biju Kumar D is the DMO, and Muridhan KC is the head of this National Homeopathy Research Institute and Mental Health, and Dr. Biju SG from Homeopathic Multi-Specialty Clinic, and a lot of well-wishers of homeopathy. They funded this work actually. Dr. Paul from Switzerland, and a big team of medical officers. They have extensively worked for this, including, I think, Dr. Reggie Kumar, who is a presenting. He will be presenting it today regarding this survey, all these things, I hope. And we got the funding from Government of Kerala also. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for such a lucid presentation on the mechanism of action of arsenic album 30 through the quantum biological model. I think this is a need of an hour to substantiate all our claims. And now I would like to request our respectable chairs, Dr. Naveen, if he has any questions to ask, sir, please.
So, Dr. Ghosh, congratulations for this wonderful study. Now, I have only one question. How specific is CD4, CD8 as response to the stressors that you were kind of evaluating? One stress, as you said earlier, and the second was about the arsenic album. How specific is it only to these two, or is it a general response as well?
Actually, we took around 1,100 samples, and from actually at that time, Pathanamthitta district in Kerala, the pandemic is creating a kind of real fear. So due to that psychoneuroimmunological aspect of that thing, it may drop their these levels due to that. It's an assumption. Actually, we didn't do that. This is actually at that time we didn't do anything. Literally, we are tied up. Our hands are tied up due to lockdown and all these regulations. So now, see, I don't consider this kind of, these pandemics are sometimes outcome of some kind of bad intentions. So see, but we don't have evidences. But the thing is that in Pathanamthitta, people are in real fear. So we just took a survey of whether you are afraid of this thing or whether you got stressed due to this. So it is a single query screening thing, but it's actually valid tool used in impact event scale, which will be used as a kind of trauma measurement. Actually, so pandemic is a kind of trauma at that time, because all are locked down in the houses, no transportation ever, and it's a new experience to the people of Kerala, maybe all over the world. They never experienced such things at that. Now everybody is in harmony with lockdowns and all the things, but at that time we think due to the thing, there is a huge stress. Due to that, their immunity got reduced. And when we given the arsenic amalgam, again the problem is that we have to run it a very strict regulatory like very strict control RCT or a cluster way we have to do it. But we don't have that kind of network in Kerala. Now we are trying to get the help of CCRH for running it, really to run a randomized trial in Pathanamthitta, still it's possible because vaccination is going on, but we can include them as a subgroup and run some good study. Basically, I'm not a clinical person. I am a nanotechnologist, work in formulations. So this is a huge teamwork by the team.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Dr.
Ghosh.
Thank you.
Dr. Yonfok, if you may like to ask some questions.
Oh, yes. So, the immunomodulation seems not to be like disease specific. I mean, not COVID specific, right? So, even in for other other viral diseases, do you think?
Yes. See,
Yeah.
arsenic amalgam is not only used in COVID. See, the symptomatology matters. So we hypothesize that the diseases are kind of larger expression of quantum biological errors happen in the human system. So if you get a lot of viral scenarios, arsenic amalgam is used as a prophylaxis. So not only for COVID, there is nothing called COVID specific immunity actually. If you look for the Chadox vector, this adenovector 5 vaccine trial, they first look for the non-specific humoral response on the
Right.
system. And mainly, there is a huge misconception regarding viral infections. Once you infect with a virus, it's for your lifetime. Suppose if I run my antibody, it may show nothing, antibody COVID negative. But I am 100% sure that I am exposed to multiple times during this because I handle all this serum. We are handling near to that COVID emergency hospital I'm working. So in these 2 years, I'm damn sure that I am exposed to COVID, but I don't have antibody. I took vaccine also. So the point is that I am confident that homeopathic medicines will help us to alleviate the bad effects of vaccine based on symptomatology. So with that confidence, I took the vaccine because of regulatory thing. So we are not against vaccine or that kind of thing, but we need clear transparency in that thing. And second thing is that, see, mainly, see how an virus, if a virus infect you, your body will adopt that viral domains to your LTR domain, and once this integration happens, our body will never consider this virus as a foreign body. So like that, lakhs of viruses are going to our GA tract through food, plant, pepperine, lot of viruses. So it's a, and COVID, what is actually immunity? See, each cell is having a mitochondria, which is having a very specific DNA, which is little bit variant from the next mitochondrial DNA. So this is a systems biology engine of trillions of cells. So you can't generalize and you can't give a general instruction to run the show. Body won't take it. So that's our understanding. And people like Professor Vincent Ragnali, Columbia University virology groups, they already established this through a lot of experiments. Vincent, he worked around 40 years in polyomavirus, and what he told is the same thing. But vaccines will be helpful in a scenario that if it works properly, if it is well tested, regulated, 100%. So accelerated things are possible. See, we are not against any policy, all these things, but this is just our perspective regarding what happened in COVID-19. And look at that patent. How it's possible in 2015 to file a SARS modified spike protein and proposing it for attenuated RNA based vaccine. You can get it in European patent database. So
Thank you,
I
Dr.
don't
Ghosh.
know. So it's open to everyone.
Thank you,
Because
Dr.
I work
Yonfok.
for allopathy industry also on nanoformulation for cancer therapy, imaging, all these things. So we are not. It's like a not conflict of domains. It's a conflict of science. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yonfok. Uh, Next in line, we have Dr. Subhashish Ganguly, who's head Department of Organon of Medicine and Homeopathic Philosophy at D&D Homeopathic Medical College and Hospital, Kolkata, India. He would be speaking on homeopathic medicines used as prophylaxis in Kolkata during the COVID-19 pandemic. So over to you, sir, Dr. Subhashish Ganguly.
Is the skin visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible. You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hmm. Homeopathic medicines, my topic is homeopathic medicines used as prophylaxis in Kolkata during the COVID-19 pandemic, a community-based cluster randomized trial. And me, Dr. Professor Subhashish Ganguly, Head of the Department of Organon Medicine and Homeopathic Philosophy, DND Homeopathic Medical College and Hospital, Kolkata, Government of West Bengal. And this is the first ever methodologically robust community-based homeoprophylaxis trial conducted in COVID-19. And it is the extramural research project funded by Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. And it has already been published in Homeopathy Journal and also in World Health Organization global literature. What is the background or justification of this study? As you know, that there are so many homeoprophylaxis during the COVID-19 in different parts of the world, and homeoprophylaxis, particularly in case of COVID-19 and also in general, this depends on geographical distribution, signs and symptoms of the patient, or signs and symptoms, and stage and intensity of the disease also. Our master, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, has also said in various literature, in lesser writing, and in Organon of Medicine also, Dr. Richard Hughes also uses that different stages of the disease and also the various factors help to identify the genus epidemicus. As complete picture is not possible initially, so we have to see the various patients, and from this the clinical picture is drawn clearly, and then the genus epidemicus is selected. Various physicians of various parts from different prophylaxis, particularly for COVID-19, though initially CCRH has said that arsenic amalgam 30 is the genus epidemicus initially, though there was no such cases reported in India. And you know, the CAM offers a variety of preventive and therapeutic options that could also be useful in the current COVID-19 pandemic, but evidence has remained mostly anecdotal. Homeopathy has been proposed as one possible CAM contributor to the prevention in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. And several different homeopathic medicines have been suggested for use in the current pandemic: arsenicum album, as already said, antimonium tartaricum, mercurius solubilis, cinchona officinalis, etc. Now, what is the aim and objective of this study? Aim is to evaluate the efficacy of homeoprophylaxis in COVID-19 infection. And primary objective is to compare the incidence of newly diagnosed confirmed COVID-19 infection across the groups. And secondary objective is to compare incidence of unconfirmed and or clinically suspected cases of COVID-19 infections across the groups. Now, regarding the choice of medicines with rationale. 3 experimental medicines, Bryannia alba, Gelsemium cimberberiens, and phosphorus, and another arm was placebo. Now, the rationale of choice. Why should we choose these medicines? Now, growing international LMHI database of the medicines used in COVID-19 treatment, and these medicines were amongst the most frequently used medicines in the treatment of influenza-like illness, and also during the 2009 H1N1 influenza pandemic in India. The selected doses
was comparably close to the pathogenetic doses as reported in the homeopathic literature. As also practitioners of Calcutta and surroundings, their opinions are also considered. And consensus was done among the various departments in our institution, and these medicines are selected.
He's still unmute.
Methods. Sample size was 20,000 in 4 arms. Each arm contains 5,000. And the recruitment started in December 2020 and completed by January 2021. Randomization was done. 4 clusters were randomized by a simple random sampling method to receive either one of the 3 homeopathic medicines or identical looking placebo. And blinding, double blinding by masking the participants, physicians, outcome assessors, and the data entry operator. Allocation concealment, identically coded containers having allied vials coded 1, 2, 3, and 4, each of which contained one of the 3 medicines or identical looking placebo. The codes were allocated randomly and confidentiality of allocation was maintained until the end of the trial. And trial reporting in compliance with CONSORT and Red Hot guidelines. Now, the outcome measures. Primary outcome, occurrence of newly diagnosed COVID-19 cases. Secondary, occurrence of unconfirmed COVID-19 cases. Timeline up to 30 days after completing the recommended doses or once the person reported COVID-19 positive, whichever was earlier. Data collection on weekly basis by home visits. Ethical issues, prospective trial registration, neither any new drug nor any new treatment protocol, and patient information sheet in local vernaculars, written informed consent prior to enrollment, and approval from the internal ethical committee, institutional ethical committee prior to initiation of the study. Experimental are Brani alba 30, gelsemium and phosphorus, and comparator identical looking placebo. Concomitant care, advices on maintenance of general hygienic measures and healthy diet, and ascorbic acid tablets of 500 milligram once daily for 6 days, because only in case of particularly so dreaded COVID-19, only placebo is not permitted. And then statistical methods, baseline comparability, chi-square tests and one-way ANOVA, proportion of outcomes, odds ratio, crude and adjusted with 95% CIS, binomial regression models to identify important covariants, and the significance level was set at 2-tailed alpha less than 0.05. And result study flow diagram, enrollment, allocation, follow-up, and analysis. Screening as per eligibility criteria, total 21,017, and exclusion was done 1017. Reasons due to denied consent, age above 75 years, taking homeopathic medicine, suffering from ILI, pregnancy, and lactation. Randomization of 4 geographical areas or clusters, cluster 1, 2, 3, 4, cluster 4 Brania, cluster 2 gelsemium, cluster 1 phosphorus, and cluster 3 placebo. Then lost to follow-up, some persons lost to follow-up in each case, and follow-up every week until 30 days, then endpoint analysis. Results. No new confirmed COVID-19 cases occurred in the target population during the follow-up time frame of 1 month, thus making the trial inconclusive. Occurrence of unconfirmed COVID-19 cases was significantly less in the phosphorus group only in comparison with placebo, but not in the Brania or gelsemium groups. 6 variables influenced the outcome significantly: advancing age, lower MUAC, possible exposure, improper social distancing, addiction, and medicines. Then this is the result. And now the conclusion. This is the conclusion. As you know, this is the probably first ever methodologically robust community-based homeoprophylaxis trial in COVID-19, and major strength is it is the double blinding randomization and large sample size, and overall the trial was inconclusive, but the possible effect exerted by phosphorus necessitates further investigation, and replication trial need to be performed under different population groups across India and the world generally. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Subhashish, for sharing the results of such a large community-based trial. And now I would like to ask the chairs if they have some questions to ask. Dr. Yon Folk.
A coordinator, I guess we have overrun quite a lot in this section. I guess we need to catch up with the time. It's my role today, right?
Yes. Dr. Naveen, if you have some question to ask.
Yeah. Dr. Ganguly?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ganguly, congratulations for such a robust, trial. Now, I have one question regarding your primary outcome. If you could check the slide before the conclusion, and you said that there were no new incidents of COVID-19 were detected as that was the primary outcome measure. So could you please elaborate on that as to why of this particular outcome?
Actually, probably the outcome may be due to different reasons. Probably the persons, the groups or clusters may not be so much exposed, or they mostly, as we have conducted the survey in slum area. So it is usually seen that probably the developed countries suffer most, and the villagers or the slum areas in our Calcutta particularly, we have seen they have suffered less. And not only that, you know that COVID-19 cases mostly are asymptomatic or very mildly symptomatic. So they may not report the cases properly, or there may be some other reasons. Their immunity may be high, or to some extent, or they may neglect their minor sufferings. This may be the cause.
Thank you, Dr. Ganguly.
Thank you, Dr. Ganguly, and thank you, Dr. Naveen Pavaskar. Moving
Thank you, sir.
Moving ahead, we have the next speaker, Dr. Ashok Kumar Das. He is the director, Henneman Academy of Homeopathy, Kolkata, India. He would be speaking on the efficacy of arsenic album, phosphorus tuberculinum, known as the APT protocol, for the long-term prevention of COVID-19. Over to you, sir.
Good evening to everybody. The subject is efficacy of arsenicum album, phosphorus tuberculinum protocol, and anti-miasmatic complementary trial for long-term prevention of COVID-19 and observational study. The classical and well-known approach of preventing any epidemic disease according to homeopathy is the genus epidemicus, or by the using certain nosodes. But clinical experience shows that genus epidemicus fails to prevent an epidemic disease when it is of a chronic nature, like COVID-19, as we have already considered. In such a case, anti-miasmatic approach may be considered, as stated by Henneman in aphorism 241 and 244 of Organon of Medicine, in the treatment of epidemic intermittent fever of chronic nature, as the homeopathic approach of both curative treatment and prevention are the same. In fact, this anti-miasmatic concept in preventing an epidemic disease was first successfully applied in preventing Japanese encephalitis by Belladonna calcareaca and tuberculinum in cereage in the year 1994 in Kerala and in the year 1999 of Andhra Pradesh of India, both being of endemo epidemic in these two states. Now, as you know, this COVID-19 is of chronic nature because it is now persistent, recurrent, having long-term after effects. And according to Hahnemann, section 73, the producer is recurrent type of acute miasm. So, following the same analogy of preventing Japanese encephalitis, myself and Dr. Robi M. Nair of Kerala developed this APT protocol, and the basis of which as follows. Now it needs, if you think of the pathophysiology of COVID-19, we considered it from mathematic aspects, as it is highly contagious, indicates SORA, the silent hypoxia, hemolysis, coagulopathy, the cytokine storm, which shows the autodestruction that leads to syphilis. The symptoms like loss of smell and taste, abrupt, unexpected deterioration, even death during apparent recovery, the changing pattern of symptomatology, and the destructive nature of the post-COVID complications of indicates of syphilisic nature. On the basis of this analysis, we come to the conclusion that COVID-19 is a combination of SORA and syphilis, and that is of tubercular miasm. Now, we selected the first arsenic album as advocated by the Government of India because this is the first medicine we have gone through repertorization, although it is based on the common symptoms, the fear and anxiety of the prevailing population, the sphere of action, both upper and respiratory tract, and long clinical experience in the treatment of different respiratory diseases. So on the basis of which we can say this arsenic album is a pathological similar medicine, but partially similar. It cannot able to cover the whole spectrum of COVID-19. That's why we thought to consider some other medicine which can have some complementary relationship which we use in case of our treatment. So we considered two drugs, phosphorus and tuberculinum. In fact, in repertorization, the second drug comes as phosphorus. So we considered phosphorus, the second medicine, the sphere of action having both lower and upper respiratory tract. Next, it also indicated in the later stage of the disease when complications like pneumonia develops. Not only that, phosphorus is a medicine of tubercular diathesis and also hemorrhagic diathesis. The phosphorus is also complementary to arsenicum album. There is another findings of the Italian pathologist that people died of COVID-19, they suffered from disseminated intravascular coagulation. And that is another point in favor of selection of phosphorus. Next, tuberculinum, as you know, it is a deep-acting constitutional medicine to prevent the different diseases, including respiratory diseases, and to boost up the general immunity. Next, the symptomatology indicates the tubercular nature. And next, the tubercular diathesis is also very prominent in our country. And this is tuberculinum is also complementary to phosphorus. Not only that, the epidemiological data shows that BCG vaccine has some protective effect against SARS-CoV-2. And if you think of both the source material of BCG and our homeopathic tuberculinum are the same, but only we differ as regards their mode of preparation. So there is another work that that there is certain study of the New York Institute of Technology, and the conclusion is that we found the countries without universal policies of BCG vaccination, such as Italy, the Netherlands, and United States, have been more severely affected compared to countries with universal long-standing BCG policies. So we have considered arsenic album after 15 days, 3 doses, after 15 days, phosphorus 30, 3 doses, after 15 days, tuberculinum 200, after 15 days, tuberculinum 1 m, 1 dose, and after 15 days, tuberculinum 10 m, 1 dose. And the total medication takes about 2 months for completion. And the dose, this is for adult 4 globules, children 2 globules. And we have distributed these medicines following the WHO recommendation in relation to Ebola to 185,000 individuals from May 20 to June 21, and followed the incidence of COVID-19 during this period among this group of people through our professional colleagues, students, homeopathic efforts, and supporters. Our observational study shows about 98 to 99% not suffered from COVID-19 even during the second wave. Only a few persons, 1 to 2%, become COVID-19 positive but suffered from mild symptoms. Very few persons having comorbid disease needed hospitalization, but no death has reported. What is the scope? This shows the potential benefit of APT intervention protocol as homeoprophylaxis for the present endemic epidemic of COVID-19, and hence may be considered as a feasible strategy for long-term prevention. Studies undertaken, but the limitations is that we have taken this study at personal level in a pandemic situation, hence rigorous scientific method could not be undertaken. And so more in-depth scientific studies are needed to confirm this observation. What is the merit? As anti-miasmatic homeopathic medicine modifies the susceptibility of the individual, hence this protocol will remain effective against all types of viral strain, even in case of newly developed Omicron, and that is a great advantage. Next, it is safe, simple, economic, effective medicine, affordable and acceptable and available and applicable to all. So that is very important, that this medicine will remain effective in spite of the change of the strain. That is important in our homeopathic aspects. So I appeal to all, I appeal to CCRH and other research and educational institutions, both at national and international level, to undertake scientific studies on this protocol. The second one, to adopt this APT protocol along with recommended general prophylactic hygienic measures to extend the benefits of homeopathy to the suffering humanity, the dream of Hahnemann and all of us. Because as you know, that this is the time, the life of the person is more precious than science. But whenever we have developed this protocol at the very early stage, there is no such time to develop certain research in that pandemic situation. In fact, this protocol was approved by the task force of the government of India, and we have given a RCT protocol, RCT research protocol, to conduct this study in 6 states like Delhi, Gujarat, Kerala, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu. But unfortunately, 3 states don't allow us to study this particular project, and that's why we can't able to undertake that RCT study. So what to do when the people are dying? What to do? then we have distributed this APT protocol through our students, friends, homeopathic lovers, to lakhs of people. I told you that we have distributed these medicines to about 1,80,000 people, and we are still following the incidence of COVID-19 among those persons who have taken this APT protocol. So today I want to share my experience to all of you, and you also try to adopt this APT protocol and see the result. Homeopathy has a great scope to prevent the disease, no doubt through Janus epidemicus, but whenever it is of chronic nature, that is very important. We need to think of anti-miasmatic approach of Dr. Hahnemann, because you know a particular epidemic may be produced by an acute miasm, which may be of two types. One is recurrent type, another is non-recurrent type. In non-recurrent type of epidemic, we can have the help of Janus epidemicus. But if it is a recurrent type of acute miasm, which leads to the development of epidemic of chronic nature, then we need to take the help of anti-miasmatic approach. So this is not a new one. It is a concept of Hahnemann, and we have applied this particular concept in homeopathic field to treat or to prevent this COVID-19. I appeal to all, you use this and save your family members, friends, others. And also at the same time, we can adopt certain scientific studies. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are actually running short of time. That's why.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation, sir. Thank you for sharing your protocol, which is more relevant seeing the chronicity of the problem. And now I would request the chairs if they have any questions to ask. Dr. Yon Folk?
Sorry to intervene.
Yeah, please.
Due to now we are almost 20 minutes behind schedule. So can we have the next speaker and take the questions at the end, ma'am, if it's okay with you all?
Yes, that's fine. We can have the next speaker. So next in line, we have Dr. Rejikumar Rajendran Nair. He is a state nodal officer from the Department of Homeopathy in Kerala, and he would be speaking on a retrospective study to evaluate the prophylactic efficacy of arsenic album 30 administered in Kerala during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over to you, Dr. Rejikumar.
Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants who are in different parts of the globe. My session will be on a study, rather not completely concluded study, which is ongoing. So I'll be just briefing the scenario in which we have conducted the study. My warm regards to the chair as well as the session coordinators, and I'll be taking this session on the retrospective study to evaluate the prophylactic efficacy of RSAL 30, which was administered in Kerala during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, most of you might have Kerala was going through a series of disasters over the last 2-3 years. Initially, it was the flood that was hardly hitting this small state in India, and then, of course, it was COVID. When Kerala was confirming the first case, in fact, in the whole nation. Way back in 30th January 2020. So Kerala was gradually recovering from the flood. Then came this, which can be considered as a disaster as well. So meanwhile, there was the advisory, like what we have discussed from the Ayush. And we were actually starting our second wave when the first case again appeared as a cluster in one of the district, that is Pathanamthitta. And thereafter, homeopathy is saying that of COVID and some experience that was happening in Kerala. As Dr. Anupriya has earlier mentioned, many states have got sanctioned to rather give preventive medicine as well as to treat COVID. But in Kerala, we were actually holding a legal battle even to get a certain amount of medication to be given for the mild cases. So it was in fact a struggle. And we have a very good structure with respect to the hierarchy. We have a parallel departments just like for modern medicine, Ayurveda or other system, and also we have homeopathy for the same. And we are having a very good infrastructure. That is one thing which will be helping in our studies that I want to highlight, because we almost have around 1150 government level institutions, and of course there are so many private institutions, and these institutions are of primary care as well as secondary and tertiary care, different levels. And we have this dedicated wing which is an innovative thing in the whole nation, that is a rapid action epidemic control cell under the government setup, which is not only conducting the distribution of medicine as well as conducting studies afterwards. So we had a very good patient support standpoint that we are able to treat whether it is COVID mild cases or moderate cases. And with this data, we were able to convince the authorities that we are not only treating as it is normally presumed, that we are not only treating children, but we are treating adults as well, because our pediatric population was only 25% with respect to patient footfall. And this shows the community participation that was happening in Kerala during the event of COVID. You see the Gram Sarpanch, that is the chief of the village, they were actually distributing medicines by themselves. So that shows their involvement with respect to our planning. So that was happening, and even the members, they were trying to give medicines by themselves. And as I mentioned, we were having a legal battle, and somehow we were able to win the situation with a Supreme Court order as well, and several High Court orders. And we have started distribution of medicine along with a protocol for finalizing how we can go ahead with the study with in order to evaluate the efficacy, because Kerala being the first state to identify cases in the whole country, and being the first state in fact to start the large scale distribution of preventive, we thought we'll be able to get a very good data with the available infrastructure. So we conducted dedicated trainings for all districts. We conducted large scale analysis of what is happening in each and every district, and this was the study summary. We were having a plan in view about 7 months. We are about to conclude the study in this month, and the study area was whole state of Kerala. And we were having the objective of identifying the persons giving their medicines, and to identify whether it was of any efficacy in the case of preventing COVID. And population was, of course, whole persons exposed and sample from the voluntary persons who have participated in the survey. And literature review, you all know that there were several studies of significance with respect to homeoprophylaxis, and in Kerala we had many studies to account for. First one by another third party university college, second by Trivandrum Government Homeopathic Medical College, and there was another third study by the state run this rapid action epidemic control cell as well. So all these studies were showing, not with respect to COVID but with respect to other epidemics, the prophylactic efficacy of homeopathic medicine. And with respect to COVID, we had two similar studies at that point of time when we were starting the protocol by CCRH that will be discussed in other sessions as well, and as Dr. Anupriya mentioned. And my friend Dr. Nirmal Ghosh was presenting this study which was undertaken in Kerala. And we were having a dedicated, in fact, one of the speaker was presenting about the big data analysis possibility. In fact, we were having a dedicated IT backbone that is unique to the state, which actually supported our data collection as well as simultaneous data analysis. So that was happening. And in fact, almost in one of the district, we had about 97% coverage of the population wherein we were able to give large scale distribution of homeopathic preventive medicine. So this shows that 97% cover. And by the side, we were doing telemedicine as well as telecounseling activities, in which we were able to give not only physical benefit support, but also moral and emotional support we were able to provide. And this shows the our sample population in each district. We were having very good institutions in order to collect the data. So the distribution of data was also almost in the first wave as well as in the second wave, almost ranging between 60 to 90%. So we were having very good participants, voluntary participants for the study. And we divided our work like this from the district level team to the institution level team and even to the college team. So it was a collaborative effort in which the clinical services team as well as the medical education team were collaborating along with the voluntary participants from other colleges as well. And the data collection methodology was from the prophylactic register, and the inclusion criteria included any person who have taken homeopathic preventive medicine in the prescribed dose, and control group those who haven't taken. Survey methodology included direct survey along with a telephonic interview, and data privacy was ensured in all sense, and the secure transaction of sensitive data was enabled by the IT backbone. And we were having a good survey settings, and our survey team were given enough trainings. Sample size, we were having a very huge sample size. I don't know whether this type of huge sample size was analyzed in any of other states. We were having 1,15,800 persons identified for the study, and we expected that 50% will be considered as control, and 50% will be study group. And the data entry was done online with the help of the IT team, and the data consolidation and extraction was done, and along with that, we, as mentioned earlier, we ensure that the primary details of the person undergoing the survey, that will be masked, encrypted rather with password, and then it will be shared with the external evaluation team. Actually, the external statistic analysis expert team was a totally different team. You know, the institution, National Institute for Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore, they were the expert analysis team, and they are actually analyzing the data, and the data analysis and reporting will be done by them. This was the questionnaire. Due to the limitation of the screen, we won't be able to go through, but it was also uploaded as an online form, so that after collecting the details, the students or the staff members, they can enter the details directly as an online form. We didn't go for a Google form because of the privacy issues, so this was on a secure platform. And almost the data collection included all these points like age-wise metrics, gender distribution, all these things were taken care of. And ultimately, we had a very good data by means of multi-stage sampling. Sampling was done by selecting random numbers, and in each institution, randomization was again conducted. So it was, in a sense, randomization at multiple stages. Due to the limitation of time, I am not going into the details of the study. And this was the data that actually we expected a data entry data of about 1,14,000, and we actually received about 1,30,000. So almost 99% of our expectation we have received the data, and many districts have actually crossed their data targets of 100%, more than 100%. So that's how, and these are the things that we are going to get it analyzed. Because of the report is not completed, I am unable to share the final details of the study, but hopefully the study will be presented in a future platform, future sessions. And owing to the great activity that we have done, we have actually received funds for the post-COVID activity as well. The government earmarked around 20 crores. So that shows the support from the government, and our patron in this program was, of course, our government sector manufacturer of homeopathic medicine, HOMCO, as well as the National Research Institute, National Health Mission, National Ayush Mission, and my dear and respected colleagues, as well as my mentors of the team. And that's all with respect to this session. More details you can have from our government homeopathy department website. And over to your remarks. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Rejikumar, for the well-presented presentation, and it's very much related to what Dr. Anupriya and Dr. Ghosh had presented earlier, and thanks for all the details. Now, I would like to inform, like, since we have overshot our session time, so we'll be taking the question answers together. And meanwhile, if any speaker or participant has to leave because of any prior engagement or they have other session to attend, they may leave. Over to the respectable chairs for any questions, if they have. Dr. Naveen and Dr. Yohan Falk.
It's a very quick one. Because in practical, I would like to ask a question to Dr. Ashok. Yeah, in practical issue, just in practically when we are doing the homeopathic prophylaxis in Hong Kong, compliance is one of the issue that we have to solve. Because your protocol seems to be a lot more complicated. In your experience, how do you handle the problem of compliance?
One thing, actually, during that initial stage of COVID-19, when there was no vaccination, no treatment, everyone is very much eager to certain medicines through homeopathic physicians or those who have the basic knowledge of homeopathy. So everyone's there were very much compliant to take the medicines. And we have kept recorded, and every 15 days we have collected what is going on, and we have given the medicine such a fashion so that everyone takes the compliance of taking those medicines.
Ma'am, you need to unmute your mic, Dr. Chester.
Dr. Naveen, you had posted a question for Dr. Ashok Kumar Das in the chat box as well. So you may ask that.
Yeah, Dr. Das, thank you for all this large effort. Really appreciate it. And the concept of APT is very well understood from your presentation. Now, what I would like to understand is what were the outcome measures? What were we measuring in this observational study? If you could just explain that.
Yes, we have observed that whether the person suffered from COVID-19 or not. Only we have taken, and we have still we are following the result.
So confirmed cases of COVID-19 detected by RT-PCR.
RT-PCR.
This is what your outcome measure.
Yes.
And the result is yet to be compiled. This is what I understand.
No. We have till date about 98 to 99% have not suffered from COVID-19. Only 1 or 2% were suffered. They have only mild symptoms. And very few persons who have COVID-19, they need hospitalization, but no death has yet reported. So we are very much encouraged with the result of this particular protocol. That's why it is my appeal to all of you to think over it, and you can also use it, adopt it in your practice or in your friends, family members. Even we are thinking you can also take those who are already vaccinated, as there is certain research work that homeopathy works through innate immunity and allopathic vaccination to acquired immunity. So we are also now giving this particular protocol those who are vaccinated or not vaccinated.
All right. So thank you, moderators. You can now conclude the session, please. Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have all the dignitaries with us. I would like to express my gratitude to the respected chairs for their valuable time and constructive inputs. I would also like to express my appreciation to all the speakers for their valuable contribution to this session. This session has been effective in meeting its purpose. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
All right. If everyone can switch on their, take a quick.
Thank you, everyone.
And special thanks to Dr. Gauri and Dr. Srishti for all the support they had been providing as coordinators.
Thanks to all. Thanks to all.
Right. So we are taking
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Can you all switch on your cameras, please? We'll take a picture.
Take pictures.
Yes, we'll definitely do that. All right. So in 3, 2, and 1. All right. So I thank all the speakers, the moderators, session coordinators, and the chairman to be on this platform. Thank you very much. This is Himail Lakhani signing off from all three. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.